Good evening, everyone. This is Reverend Denise Schubert, live from Fort Myers, Florida. We're here for our second inaugural Sunday Night Alive. So I'm so happy to be here with you tonight. It's warm here, like it's always warm here, but it's getting ready to rain, which is lovely. So if you're here, please sign in, chat, let me know that you're with me. So good. Happy Mother's Day to everyone, by the way, whether you're a mother or an auntie or a grandma or a sister or a father who's a mother, just happy Mother's Day to, I hope you get to do something really fun and really lovely today. So our topic today is unconditional happiness. It's a huge topic. I'm quite excited to be talking to you about it. It's a big topic. It's one of those topics that is going to go and blow the lid off your head. But I wanted to tell you, hi guys. Hi Janelle. Hi Misty. Hi Tom. So good to see you. I wanted to let you know about something else I'm making up. I'm just sitting here. They need to let me out of the house because I'm just making up too much stuff. But I realized that I want to see your faces. Like this is just a one-way street. I talk, you listen, and I love doing that. You know I do. But we need a forum where we can unpack what we're talking about because I think the topics are kind of mind-blowing. I like it that way. I call this show a little bit conversations that matter. So I'm invented a Wednesday noon Zoom. I'm going to put the information up here so that you can see it. So every Wednesday at 12 noon is just going to be an open Zoom room. And this is my phone number and is also the meeting ID. So if you use Zoom, just go to Zoom and it'll say, what's a meeting ID? And you type in this number and it will bring you into the room. And I think just a half hour, 45 minutes of community and connection and conversation about the previous Sunday's topic. So we'll see. If nobody wants to do that, then we won't do it. But if you want to do it, which I think some of you might want to do it, just come join me this coming Wednesday at 12 noon Eastern Standard Time, and we'll see what we have to say to each other. Okay, good. All right. I also posted the Zoom link on the A Life of Spiritual Power website, our Facebook page, and it's also my website, so you can also go there. All right, so it's good to be with you. I always get a little, you ought to see, I look so neat and together here, but if you could see the space I'm in, it has clothes and jewelry, and it's crazy. But it's good. I'm grateful. Not for you. I'd never have to put jewelry on. All right, so I wanted to start before we kind of unpack this thing called unconditional happiness, which is a big thing to unpack. I read a little book. It's from Will Bowen, who's the author of A Complaint-Free World. He wrote this little book, 365 Days from me to you, love God. And, last week and every week we'll, to some degree, talk about possibility, talk about what it means to move into a space that you've never moved into before, or to live a life that you've never lived before. And in fact, to me, that's the biggest quest, is to always be reinventing myself, no matter what age I am. And I those of you who know me, I reinvent myself a lot, much to the chagrin of many people, but there you have it. So this is what he writes for today. That is actually for May 10th. And he writes, a young bird stands at the edge of its nest. Below is what appears to be infinite space. At the bottom is really hard ground. Although the fledgling was born to fly, flight seems impossible. An infant pulls herself up into a standing position. She extends one wobbly leg and shifts her weight, but does not walk. walking seems impossible. A man stands backstage preparing to speak to a large gathering. His hands are sweating, his mouth is dry, his mind is a blaring, cacophonous din of fearful thoughts. Addressing the huge audience seems impossible. So yet a moment later, the bird flies, the infant walks, and the man speaks. So God says, everything is impossible until it is done. It is the act that calls forth the capacity. If you are waiting for something to become possible before taking action, know that it is action that makes things possible. Love, God. So kind of sets the stage really for this idea of unconditional happiness. Now, I believe the operating word here, I believe that the power word here is not happiness, it is unconditional. Because even though my source of inspiration, which happens to be The Untethered Soul by Michael Singer, even though his focus is on happiness, I believe our focus could be unconditional peace, unconditional joy, unconditional abundance, unconditional health. So I think that if you want to be a master manifester and get anything done, you're going to need this kind of unconditional commitment that Michael Singer is speaking about in his book. Now, I mentor people, and I actually suggest to a lot of people that they read this chapter. It's chapter 15 in The Untethered Soul. And by the way, I love the word untethered. I looked it up. It means unfastened, disconnected, and free from the restraints of our past. Or it means unfastened, disconnected, and free. Can you imagine our soul being unfastened, disconnected, and free from the constraints of our past? It would. I know that happens when our soul becomes untethered when we die, which is great, and we continue on ever evolving. Wouldn't it be great to just have this untethered experience here, like to just experience freedom and some space to be who and what we really are? So most of us cannot really imagine our happiness or our peace or our joy being disconnected from the world. Truly, most of us cannot really imagine that, because it's mostly how we live, right? That we're happy when this happens and we're unhappy when this happens. And he's not talking about that. He's talking about being happy unconditionally, just like loving unconditionally, which also seems impossible to most people because it's not what we do. We do not love unconditionally. We love if the person loves us back, or if their body's where we want their body to be. We certainly don't want their body to be with anyone else, but if they don't take out the garbage every week, whatever it is, there's so many conditions on really our giving and receiving of love. But Socrates said, an unconditioned life is not worth living. And from the perspective of a life of power, an unexamined life would be the life of predictability. The unexamined life would be the being asleep. The examined life would be a life of possibility. The examined life would be the life that is awakening. So tonight, and every night, hopefully, we'll engage in some rigorous examination of our own lives so that we can move into greater, freer, fuller expression of who we are and what we're getting done in the world. So let's begin by looking at the backdrop of our lives, the context out of which we are coming. And what is true for most people, if not almost all people, I'm hoping it's not all people, but definitely 99% of all people, were not taught by well-meaning parents and grandparents and teachers and preachers the art of happiness. That we were not really taught the art of contentment and the art of feeling like we're enough. We just weren't. I wish we were, but we weren't. And it's not that our parents ever said, I don't want you to be happy. In fact, they said exactly the opposite. But in our observing of how they lived their lives and learning from them who we are and how the world is, we did not learn. We were not taught that happiness was how to have happiness, how to be happy. We also are under the duress of the media and of consumerism, which has been working on you since you were a baby. And since you were a baby, you have been told that more is better, bigger is better. You have to stay up with the Joneses. You've been told that you're not enough without deodorant, beer, sex, and antacids. Sometimes I think about what would happen if a spaceship came and the aliens got off the spaceship, and they never really talked to us. But what they did do is they watched 24 hours of television nonstop. And then they had to go home and tell everyone who we were based on their experience of those 24 hours of television. And can you imagine what they said? For the most part, they would say, well, we never really met any of them, but they are very sick and they're very angry and they're very violent and they're constipated and they're depressed. So I hope you're laughing. That's why we need a Zoom meeting, because at any rate, I really am just talking to myself. So the question is, who among us lays our head down at night? We get to the end of the day and we're celebrating all of the things we got done. We're not stressing over all the things we didn't get done. You have 10 things on your to-do list to get done today. You get 6 of them done. Well, most of us are oriented towards feeling bad about the 4 we did not get done rather than the 6 that we did get done. Most of us do not get to the end of the day and celebrate what happened during the day. We mostly ruminate in our minds the things that didn't go right today. So this inheritance that we have towards dissatisfaction, towards discontentment, towards not being happy, there's no way that it could lead. There's no way that we could be satisfied, and no way that we could be happy as long as we keep that up. But fortunately, as you all know, we are more than our past. We are more than our conditioning. We have the capacity. Ernest Holmes said, change your thinking, change your life. Many people have said, change your thinking, change your life. There's a beautiful quote by Jesus who says, do not be conformed to this world. Be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Don't try to fit in here. Like, think a new thought. Wake up to a new possibility. So Jean Houston, who's an author and human potential worker, says, you are not just an encapsulated, sorry, I forgot to put my banners up. You are not just an encapsulated bag of skin dragging around a dreary little ego. You are an evolutionary wonder, a trillion cells singing together, a symbiosis of cell and soul. I just love this. You are not just an encapsulated bag of skin dragging around a dreary little ego. So in truth, and I actually speak from experience, I've had a very, very challenging year. I read this book last year, actually, because last year was a little bit of a challenging year for me as well. But I read this book. I read chapter 15. I refer to as chapter 15. I read chapter 15 last year. And this year, just since January, the nonprofit I came down here to work for closed its doors. So I found myself unemployed after just buying a house. My sister had a stroke, and I still haven't seen her. She was in Phoenix, and it was so unsettling. I had to euthanize one of my cats. I had lots and lots of reasons to, and then COVID-19. Then I got locked up like everyone else, and no haircuts, no manicures, no massage, lots and lots of reasons to spiral into unhappiness. But the truth is that happiness is a choice we make. It's just a choice. It's a choice. In fact, I think it was Abe Lincoln who said, I reckon people are about as happy as they make up their minds to be. So let's take a look. Well, check in with yourself and see, I mean, does it feel like science fiction to commit to living a life of unconditional happiness? You know, for those of you who have done my Life of Power classes, it's the same thing as creating a context, you know, a context of I will be happy. No matter what happens, I will be happy. No matter what happens, I'm going to lose those 10 pounds. It's our ability to create something out of nothing. But we do have to disconnect from being evidence-driven people. Like, I'll only be happy if under these circumstances. Now, I'm going to quote a couple things from Michael Singer so you can really hear his words on this, because he really is very much speaking about the unconditional happiness. So he says, you really only have one choice in this life, and it's not your career or who to marry or whether or not to seek God. He says, in the end, you can throw all of that away and just make one underlying decision. Do you want to be happy or do you not want to be happy? And he says, it's really that simple. Once you make the choice, your path through life becomes clear. And I would add to that, once you make the choice and commit to that choice, then the path becomes clear. The way you walk in that decision becomes clear. He goes on to clarify that the question does not include conditions. So it's not, I want to be happy if nothing bad happens, because he says bad things are going to happen. There's no way. I mean, if you're 50 years old and you're going to live for another 40 years, he says in those 40 years, things are going to happen that aren't going to feel like you should be happy when they're happening, right? That they're going to be hard things and somebody moved my cheese things. You know, so, or I want to be happy, but the stock market lost ground today. The question is, do you want to be happy or you do not want to, or do you not want to be happy? So he says, and just when I say this, see if something arises in you that feels like resistance. He says, if you decide that you are going to be happy from now on for the rest of your life, you will not only be happy, you will be enlightened. Singer says that unconditional happiness is the fastest, most direct path and technique to awakening to your higher consciousness. Pretty good, huh? So maybe this kind of commitment to our well-being, whether it's, you know, you can see that it could be peace, to commit to peace for the rest of your life. How would, imagine going into your day, right? Driving on the freeway, meeting with your boss, talking to your mother-in-law, running into a cranky person at the bank. If you had an unconditional commitment to being and experiencing peace in yourself, how would that show up for you different? That's the question. So he says it is the unconditional aspects. It is the unconditional aspect of this that makes it the highest path, because the moment you make it unconditional, it's like a vow for you or a promise you make or a commitment you make. And as you go through life, as you walk your walk and talk your talk and go through life, in every moment, you will be up against, am I willing to sacrifice my peace here? Am I willing to sacrifice my happiness just because I missed my flight, or just because that woman was rude, or just because my cat dies, right? So are we willing to sacrifice the things we care most about based on conditions in the world? Now, there are smaller concerns, not small, like insignificant, but smaller concerns than your cat dying. You know, it's like, what about the 10 pounds you want to lose? What about the quitting drinking or quitting smoking or being more positive or being more loving or being more compassionate or being more kind, because I'm telling you, it's all the same. It can't be one way for one thing and another way for other things. So your willingness, so conditional means I'm willing to be kind to you as long as you do this. The moment you do this, all the bets are off, right? Or I'm willing to lose 10 pounds as long as I'm not too stressed, because when I get stressed, I can't help but eat a chocolate cake. I just can't help myself. So unconditional means without conditions, without conditions. So, there is something I want you to find. Let me find it in here so I can show you, because showing you is good. Maybe I can't find it. Oh yeah, here it is. It's the no matter what. It's like, can you, I have found my no matter what in many, many, many times. I'll give you, one was when I quit smoking successfully for the last time. It was in 1995. I had been at Agape for about a year and a half. I finished my foundations class, and I smoked since I was 16, and I smoked a lot. And, I was like a pack and a half smoker, and I was a emotional smoker. So when I was happy, I smoked. When I was sad, I smoked. When I was angry, I smoked. And I had tried to quit many times because it was no longer becoming, and I didn't like it. I didn't like the way it smelled. I didn't like the social stigma. And I did. But one day I was driving, and I got this clear sense of that I had to quit. And somewhere in there, I came up with a no matter what. It was like my second no matter what. Like, well, you just as of January 21st, 1995, you are going to quit smoking, and you are never going to smoke again, no matter what. It was an unconditional commitment. And the no matter what included crying forever. It meant getting fat. It meant having to feel every emotion that I never felt for 45 years, right? So now, looking back, right, and I'll go back to the reading, that I started with Will Bowen's reading, that on the side of not quitting, you're a caterpillar. On the side of quitting, you're a butterfly, right? That on the side of not walking, it's impossible. And on the side of walking, it's a miracle. So even today, I just feel so grateful that I was able to drop that habit. I mean, so grateful. I don't know how I dropped it, but it had something to do with this unconditional commitment, and something to do with our capacity to make that kind of commitment and mean it. Another life situation where that came into play was when I was 32. I committed to running a marathon with the Hunger Project. And for those of you who have never run a marathon is 26.2 miles. And my running a marathon was really stupid. It was a stupid idea because I was smoking. I was 25 pounds heavier, so I was about 150 pounds. I had never run a day in my life, and it was just a really stupid commitment. But with that said, I was incredibly committed. And to run a marathon, you have to train for it. You can't just walk out the front door and go. So I had 1 year to train. And during that year, I did have lots of support, which is one of the things I discovered and learned during that time. But I would put on my shoes and run. I would put on my shoes and go outside and run, because you can't run a marathon if you don't do that. I sprained my ankle during that time. I was harassed and accosted by 3 men on training runs. And I had so many reasons to say, look, guys, it was a really bad idea. I'm really sorry, but I didn't. That it was a no matter what commitment for me, that I am going to do this. And Singer says that it's transformative. You learn so much about yourself. I mean, think of it. Think of walking out tomorrow saying, I'm going to be happy no matter what happens. And by the way, just committing to that is going to bring you things so that you can practice. You can practice, right? But just imagine how much you're going to learn about yourself and about people and about life. So So the no matter what is something like, and remember, a life of spiritual power, commitment, and congruence are cornerstones of this work. Vision, commitment, congruence. And this no matter what, it kind of goes like this. I can count on me, and you can count on me to quit smoking, right? The more important problem is probably I can count on me. I can count on myself to make commitments and keep them. I can count on myself to transcend the power of this universe. Sorry, I have an itchy nose. So you can count on me and I can count on me. So Singer says, this path will lead you to absolute transcendence, because any part of you that would add a condition to your commitment to happiness has to go. So any part of you that's negative, pessimistic, do you understand? Like any part of you that would add a condition, you have to eliminate. And what we're eliminating is the ego here. We're not eliminating the spirit. He says, if you want to be happy, you have to let go of the part that wants to create melodrama. This is a part that believes there is a reason to be unhappy. There's a reason for you not to be unhappy. This is so deep. I actually hope you can really get that. If you have something going on with you, like a core default context of I'm not deserving of happiness, or I'm not worthy of happiness, that's a part of you that believes that you shouldn't be happy. You have to get rid of it. You just have to transcend it and just be, I'm a person who deserves happiness. Or that part of you that gives you a reason to smoke, or to gives you a reason to not exercise, even though you're committed to exercising. So as you do so, you will naturally awaken to the essence of your spiritual power. So I think that this word unconditional, this kind of unconditional commitment, is what's missing in our ability to manifest. Some people call me, there are people on this call who know me, but the people call me a master manifester. Like somehow I just get what I want. Somehow I just make things happen. And it is this ability to commit no matter what. And by the way, to commit no matter what, sometimes the people you care about really don't want you to do that, or don't, you may have to give up people pleasing to really commit to things that you really, really, really want in that way, because compromise is one of those mischievous little things that can be a reason for you to sacrifice your happiness or sacrifice your peace. Jean Houston, another quote from Jean Houston, she says, we cannot embrace the new mind, or she's really talking about the new context or the new idea or the new commitment. She says, we cannot embrace the new mind just sitting around and talking about it. It demands that we alter not just our thinking, but our way of living down to the smallest detail. And within the conversation of a life of spiritual power, the changing our living down to this tiniest detail is the integrity and congruence part, right? Because we have to walk our walk. You have to talk our talk. We can't be saying one thing to ourselves, another thing to people, and then another thing in our behavior. It messes with our sense of wholeness and well-being. So our path is ones who are seeking to awaken, is to transcend the puniness of the ego's way of living and the ego's way of viewing life, and to practice dominion over our innate capacity to speak our word, to commit to it, to create our lives out of possibility, which is the same as saying to create our lives out of nothing. No past, no prior conditioning, and no defaults. And this is possible. It really is. It really, even in the middle of COVID, even in the middle of the coronavirus, even in the middle of no pedicures, no manicures, no massages, even in the middle of not knowing what's going to happen next. we say within my philosophy, faith, and way of life that we are made in the image and likeness of whatever it was that created everything. We use the word God, but you don't have to. You could use the word spirit. You could use the word quantum physics. You could use the word, I mean, there is, I don't know what it is. There is something. We did not create any of this or ourselves. But if we are made in the image and likeness of that, then our happiness, our power, our poise, our confidence, our ability to create a world we love, we inherited that. That's our true inheritance, is that we have the capacity to do that. Now, and by the way, the awakening process is nothing more than that. It's nothing more than realizing that you've been conditioned by life and you have to get over it. Like everything you think you believe, somebody told you. Everything you think is true, it's true because somebody told you. It's like, so this examine life is not worth living. It's something we have to be diligent with ourselves and examine everything. Why do I believe this is true? And does it work? Do I still want to believe it? It's a work we have to do. And the awakening process, like once you get past you get exalted out of the ego's need for drama and the ego's need for conflict, then you are already experiencing heaven on earth. Then you are already awakened, enlightened, transformed, whatever word you want to use. So I'm not really a Bible person, but I happen to love this quote, and I'm going to read it as it's written, and then I'm going to paraphrase the whole darn thing so it makes sense to us. So it's practical. So it's from John 16:33, and in it, Jesus says, "In the world you shall have tribulation, but be of good cheer. I have overcome the world." So Jesus was, by the way, not talking about him. The I he's speaking about was not him. He was really talking about the spirit within him, which is the same as the spirit within all of us. So tribulation means trouble and suffering. So in the world, you shall have trouble and suffering. Agreed, trouble and suffering. Sure, of course. A lot of it. Just watch the news. Way more trouble and suffering than I want us to have. I want us to transform ourselves so we can create a world that doesn't have quite so much. So in the world, you shall have trouble and suffering, right? Your cat dies, the coronavirus, kids shooting into high schools, your house burns down, your mother dies. I don't know, trials and tribulations, suffering. But then he says, but be happy, be of good cheer, for the spirit of life is within you. Whatever name you give it, it is whole, it is perfect, it is complete. It does not suffer. It's not unhappy. It's not verklempt or depressed. It's not afraid. It's whole. It's strong. It's present. It's courageous. It's whatever all of those wonderful attributes are. Whatever it is, you are that. It's inside of you. So we strive to live from the inside out. I strive to, if you're on this call, you strive to too. Otherwise, you would have hung up on me a long time ago. But right, we strive to not be so reactive to outer circumstances. We strive to not be so people-pleasing and capitulate. It's one of my favorite words. We try not to capitulate to the powers that be, whether it's a family member or a government official or rule makers anywhere. We strive not to be too impacted. We strive to stand in our own power, our own presence, our own authority, our own intelligence, and to live from that place. And nobody can tell you how to feel. Nobody. So if you want to feel happy, feel happy. If you think telling people you feel happy is not the wisest thing to do, then don't tell them. Doesn't mean you can't be happy or feel it. So Reverend Chris Michaels is the spiritual director of a Unity Church in Fort Lauderdale. And I went down a couple years ago and he was doing a talk. And I just loved one of the things he said, because I think it's true, a true statement about the spirit within us. And he said that our spirits are ultimate adventurers. Status quo, boredom, fear, playing small. These are not qualities of the spirit. I'm adding this. They are not, they are qualities of the ego, the self-esteem when it's rooted in the ego. The spirit itself, the spirit outside, the spirit within us is huge, flamboyant, and excited. And he said, when we stop the spirit from living fully, the spirit will begin to decay the body in small and big ways so that the spirit can be free. So it's a little bit likened to the quote in the Bible, without vision, the people will perish, right? That the spirit within us needs to be expressed. It needs to express its joy, its gratitude, its happiness, its appreciation and gratitude for the wonder that life is. So the striving for your life to be happy or contented or satisfied is not selfish. It is not stupid. It's these feelings of peace, of joy, of happiness, of generosity. They're incredibly good for you, and they're incredibly good for your health and your body. And because the world that we know, all of it, all that we love and all that we don't love, exists by virtue of our consciousness. You know, we have 7 billion little points of consciousness in the world, and we all are adding to how the world is. So we want the world to be happier and healthier. So you get happy and healthy, and the world will get happy and healthy. So try it on this week. Try on this word unconditional. See if you can wrap your head around it without too much resistance. Just see if any resistance comes up. So on Wednesday, I told you, Wednesday at 12 noon on Zoom, if you have questions, if you need clarity, if you want to argue with me, whatever, if you just want to check in with other people, because really, by the way, I would say the number of people who are striving to do what you're striving to do is not the majority. So you're living in a world in which you're trying to be happy, you're trying to be healthy, you're trying to be positive. You may not get a lot of support from your immediate circle of friends and family. So we all need that kind of support. We do. You need somebody to say, you go, girl. It's okay for you to be happy. So next week, so join me on Wednesday. Obviously, this broadcast is free, but if you want to support the work financially, I so welcome you to do that. Every little bit helps. I'm trying to get this book written and stay focused. So you can do PayPal donations at revdschubert@gmail.com. And no worries, only if you're called, of course. And join me on Wednesday if you're around. And next week, our topic is, again, one of my favorite topics, involution and evolution. So I think that's it for tonight. I feel pretty complete. I hope you do too. I'm going to go back to comments. I want to just say hi, Betty. Hi, Larry. Hi, Stephen. Oh my God, Stephen Fried. So great to see you all here. I love you. I wish I could just kiss on you and touch you and hug you, but alas, not yet. But hopefully in July, I will be making a trip to Raleigh. I'm hopeful. I haven't booked my flight yet. Nobody's booking flights yet, but anyway. All right, I'm going to pray us out. Actually, I forgot to pray us in, but that's okay. I'm going to pray us out. So if you're new here, if you don't know who I am, praying us out is not a religious thing. We're simply going to just give a moment of, we're going to connect our spirits one to another, and we're going to give thanks, and we're going to bless our time. So I'm going to close my eyes because I like turning within, and I invite you to do the same. Just close your outer eyes. Just let all those activities and conditions, people, places, situations, and circumstances in the world, whatever they may be, good ones, bad ones, happy ones, sad ones, whatever they may be, just let your outer eyes close so that they can be right where they are as we send blessings to them. And we open our inner eyes so that we can gaze into the space and place and dimension within us that is eternally happy, that is eternally satisfied. There is something within us that is unfettered, untouched by the human condition. Something within us that is yearning, begging us and yearning, wanting to be set free, untethered. We want to let our essential self, our higher self, our transformed self, our God self be untethered from the sorrows from this earth, the tribulations. And so I just, in this moment, as we turn within together, we are connected to each other, that we are connected to all beings everywhere. We're connected to all situations, that love is a truth between our souls, even if we've never met, that there is something powerful in this sense of community and connection. And it is from that place that I just simply speak a word of gratitude for tonight's Sunday Night Alive, for knowing that the conversations, no matter how deep or not deep, that they are eminently serve to allow us to examine our lives, to think a new thought, to practice new ways of being, to step in a more powerful, more confident, more poised way of living. And to do so, knowing that we do it not only for ourselves, but we do it for the planet. We do it for our children and our grandchildren, because what I know is that happy, healthy people will create a happy, healthy world. And so knowing that each one of us goes about this week blessed, grateful, and unconditionally something in order to feel the transformative power of that word, we simply just let our time together be as it was, which is whole and perfect. And so with so much love and so much gratitude, we let this be. We let it be together by saying, and so it is. Namaste. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, everybody. I love you. See you Wednesday or see you next week. Good night.